This is Modern Persian Food,
a culinary podcast for today's food enthusiast.
We talk about classic Persian flavors,
modern recipes,
and embracing culture and identity through food.
I'm Bita.
And I'm also Bita.
Welcome to our show. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 165. Spring has sprung, and with it, all the fresh green growth around us. Today, we're going to focus on herbs in Persian cuisine and the important role that herbs play in many dishes, both fresh, dried, and in several forms. On the second half of the episode, we'll be reflecting on March, where we had an action-packed month full of activities and celebrations. So be sure to hang till the end. And with me is co-host Bita. Hey, Bita.
Hi, Bita June. How's it going?
I'm good. So you ready to talk about herbs in Persian food?
Yeah, absolutely. Herbs play such an important role in our cuisine. You know, just simply even from just the raw, fresh herbs that we have on the table as Sabzi Khordan, which I love, to the dishes and the khoresh that really celebrate all the herbs and are cooked together and to make really delicious khoresh and stews. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think makes Persian food unique and nutritious. Why don't we start off with Sabzi Khordan? For those who may not have heard that word, it is basically what we call the fresh herb that we have at the beginning of the meal or as a side. It's often robust with fresh herbs and served with walnuts, feta cheese, green onions, some form of a bread. And we could even run through what some of the common herbs that are on a Sabzi Khordan platter might be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Sabzi Khordan, you could have it with every meal. You could even have it with breakfast. And it is really delicious, rolled up into a little sandwich with some sangak bread or some lavash bread. Sangak bread is actually bread that's cooked in like a bread oven on hot pebbles, which is really cool. It leaves little indentations on the bread. And it just brings so much freshness. The walnuts, sometimes other nuts like almonds, you can even soak the nuts to have them get a little bit more tender. Those are delicious. As for what common herbs we will find in a platter of Sabzi Khordan, of course, you can have mint, cilantro, parsley, basil, any kind of really soft herb that you like, you can do it. And it's just like, you'll be surprised at how big of a little handful you can squeeze into a little sandwich, a little ghormeh, as we call it, and have it, and how much brightness it will bring. So those are definitely some go-to ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say a minimum of 3 or 4 to make a true Sabzi Khordan platter would include mint, tarragon, parsley, cilantro, basil, chives, radishes, raw onions sometimes, and for more elaborate versions, some whole Persian cucumbers. And I've even seen fresh tomato. So feta cheese, butter, walnut halves, these are kind of standard and typical.
Yeah, typical sabzi platters. As you can see, it has more than just sabzi when you want to make it kind of a little bit of a elaborate offering, which is super delicious.
Worth noting in the Persian food culture, it's not a little garnish or a little sprig of parsley. What Sabzi Khordan really is like a big handful bunch. Almost like half your plate could be Sabzi Khordan to like truly get the freshness and the brightness of the experience of eating the Sabzi Khordan and the fresh herbs, almost like a standalone salad. And it's eaten with the stems intact often. And I have to say, as a nutritionist, that's really good for you. The stems have lots of vitamins and nutrients and fiber. And if your tummy can tolerate it, it's really nutritious to eat all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're talking about the soft herbs too. So like those stems aren't like hard. It's not like a rosemary stem. It's very soft and you can definitely bite through them.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I definitely love it fresh like that. You know, when we add fresh herbs to other salads like salad shirazi, I actually enjoy putting a little bit of parsley in to my salad shirazi. It gives it a little bit more brightness. And I love the pop of like the dark green against the green and the red colors of the cucumber and the tomato and then the onion. So I love that. And you can really kind of like add those to different dishes to just really brighten them up. It does really add a kick of color and a little bit of flavor that makes it pretty unique.
Yeah, as the weather is warming up, I try to plant some fresh herbs in my small garden bed that I have in the deck. And they are also easy to grow in a kitchen garden. And so I always find that if I am growing fresh herbs, it really elevates anything that I'm cooking, even beyond Persian food. It's just to add just that je ne sais quoi of a little, fresh herb to whatever I'm cooking, even eggs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, some of the herbs grow pretty easily, like mint. I have it on my patio in a little pot that I think I've killed the plant like 3 times so far, but it still just comes back. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to just be able to get a little sprig of it. You can put it like, with whatever you're cooking, or sometimes just even put it with hot water or like a little sikanjabin, a little drink with like cucumber and with a sikanjabin syrup, which is super delicious and refreshing, especially as the weather is getting warmer. Regarding other potted plants, I typically buy my basil in a potted plant from the grocery store, and I leave it on the counter, and I just pinch off some leaves every time that I want to use it, or I really enjoy that. And these days you can really get kind of so many of the herbs from just any grocery store. Has a whole array of fresh herbs that you can get. So, there was a time where it was hard to get even the standard herbs back in the day. I think we've talked about that before when we had Gita Jun from Mamon and Me cookbook. She was talking about how when she first had come to the US, that she would have to go to so many different markets just to get cilantro. And when she would find cilantro, she would get like 7 or 8 bunches at a time. So thankfully, we don't have to have those challenges anymore. And you really even, the corner market sometimes will carry these herbs too.
Yeah, and we still have on our list of upcoming topics to have some regional experts. So depending on the regions of Iran, there are some specialty herbs that we can cover in a future time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Omid, the Caspian chef, we've had him on the show a few times. He talks about some specific herbs that are specific to the Caspian region. So you can definitely listen to that episode to hear more about those specialties.
Absolutely. Well, I heard you've been cooking up some soup in anticipation of some guests.
Yeah. So, I think if we wanted to talk about some dishes that really celebrate herbs, one of the main ones, and what you're referring to that I just actually finished making this morning, is ash rishte. My favorite Persian soup. It's a hearty soup. For those of you that don't know, it has so many herbs in it, and it has noodles. Rishte means noodles. And it has beans in it and onions. And it's one of my favorite dishes. I love having it for New Year's. I love like any occasion to have it. It's very hearty. It's very healing. It feels good eating it. It's definitely a big comfort food. And with that, I typically use cilantro and parsley. I use spinach in there as well. But, this time I was playing around. You can add dill to it and mint to it as well. I top it with fried mint, but you can add mint to it. And it really does celebrate so many of the herbs that we eat. And it's such a comfort food for me.
I have a confession to make, and it's kind of a double confession.
Okay, tell me.
One confession is that I actually don't really eat tons of herbs the way that I'm supposed to as an Iranian girl. I like certain ones,
Sure.
But I don't eat it by the handful. I have my favorites, which I can eat much of, but in terms of the array of the Sabzi Khordan that you get from Persian restaurants or takeout or in a traditional sense, I kind of pick at it and I pick my favorite pieces out. But what I do with it is when we get takeout, they will give us an entire to-go box full of fresh herbs with a couple of those little tinfoil butters and halves of entire onions that are, peeled and cut and wrapped in saran wrap. What I do is I take all of that and I make ash rishte. I cook it down so I don't waste it.
How resourceful.
Yeah, it's a great base for that soup that you just referenced. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, there you go.
That's how I use it.
Yeah, well, to each their own. I mean, I love having all the fresh herbs. We had a Persian meal together recently, and I was like eating all those herbs, big handfuls at a time. So it's to each their own. If you like only specific ones, I know people who just like really gravitate just towards the basil or like don't necessarily want the cilantro. Some people don't even like the taste of cilantro. So to each their own.
Cilantro is my favorite. So definitely to each his own. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good way to kind of use up some of the herbs. If you don't know what to do, sometimes you get a bunch of herbs. And if you don't know what to do with like the rest of it, if you use just a little bit of it for a recipe, you can definitely chop that up, put that into a soup, make a ash rishte, or maybe some of these other dishes that we can talk about.
Yeah, cuckoo is the other one.
Right. So Ghormeh Sabzi. Let's talk about Ghormeh Sabzi because that's another dish that really is just so bright green and full of herbs.
Ghormeh Sabzi. It's got a silly name, but a delicious taste, and it's really nutritious too. It's kind of an egg-based herb frittata, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I like to make it, I whip it all up, and I do add spinach to mine as well. Lots of fresh herbs, walnuts. I skip the barberries. I skip adding zeresh or barberries to mine. I sometimes will use them as a garnish. And I like to make them in little muffin tins and bake them in the oven. That's my favorite way to make Ghormeh Sabzi.
Yeah, I love Ghormeh Sabzi. Cuckoo, as you mentioned, is kind of like an egg-based little frittata. There are other versions. So to touch on that really quickly, it doesn't have to be an herb one. There is potato ones. We learned that there is a chicken one. So again, it's kind of like that frittata. You could make it with eggplant. Again, it's a little kind of frittata that can be pan fried or it can be baked in the oven. It's great as a little appetizer. I love taking them on picnics, and I enjoy them cold or warm or room temperature. It's really a matter of preference on how you eat it, but that is definitely one that Ghormeh Sabzi that just is like bright green, and the herbs are really the main ingredient. There are eggs in it. There's like a little bit of flour in it, but really herbs is what really stands out in that.
Yeah, and as you touched on, the traditional way of cooking it is to fry it in a pan. And like my mother-in-law makes it in a big round pan and fries it until it gets pretty brown, and then kind of cuts it like a pizza in triangles.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's lots of versions, and you can always bake it and make it a tad bit more healthy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about what else really celebrates herbs.
Yeah, I mean, the big one in our cuisine is probably Ghormeh Sabzi, right?
Yes, Ghormeh Sabzi. The dark green stew with kidney beans. There's kind of other different variations, regional variations that they make it with like black-eyed peas with some sort of braised meat in it. Typically, of course, you can use whatever meat that you decide that you want. I've made a version with tofu before. You can make it with mushrooms if you want to have it like a vegan version. And it is like the iconic Persian stew, sometimes referred to as the national stew of Iran.
It has not only the brightness of everything you mentioned, but also sour. It has a bit of a sour punch with the limu amani, or dried Persian lime or lemon.
Yes, that's right. That is also the other key ingredient in the dish, is that these dried limes that really just kind of like cook in the braising liquid and cook in the stew itself. And then you can kind of break into the limu amani. If you're in for like a little bit of a sour treat, you can break into it, use your spoon and fork to kind of cut it up a little bit and incorporate little bites of that as you go along. But Ghormeh Sabzi, delicious. That has like a ton of different herbs in it. It can be a little bit labor intensive because all of those herbs that you're using, you need to sort them and wash them and dry them and chop them up. So it can be pretty labor intensive, but these days there are a lot of shortcuts to it. If you go to any kind of Persian market, they have a wider range of cheats that you can take to make Ghormeh Sabzi a little bit easier to make. And there are actually jarred versions of it at the Persian markets as well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there's another one that's similar, and it also has tons of herbs and is sour. And what am I talking about, Bita?
You're talking about Khorsh Karafs, the big rival to Ghormeh Sabzi. And some people have really strong opinions about Khorsh Karafs. Karafs means celery. So it's a celery stew with a ton of parsley and mint. and the onions. And this can have the limo ameni as well in it. Some versions do have it. But some people hate on it. I don't know why, because I love it. I love khorsh karafs. It's one of my favorites. Do you like khorsh karafs?
I've come to really love it. And it depends who's making it and what's in it. But I like a good khorsh karafs. I love the one with artichoke. I've had that version that has some artichoke in it. And I like it to be super sour. I love it. It's delicious.
Yeah. I think the rivalry between khorsh karafs and Ghormeh Sabzi, just, I don't know why people have such strong feelings about it, but it's like maybe they're anticipating Ghormeh Sabzi and they get karafs and they're just kind of like let down about that. And I guess celery isn't always a vegetable that everyone loves. I know one of my brothers isn't a huge fan of celery, so he's like, celery stew? It sounds a little funny to him.
I think aesthetically, both of those stews we just talked about, the Ghormeh Sabzi, the one with the kidney beans, and the khorsh karafs, the celery one, neither one of them are very aesthetically pleasing to look at. But I think if you can get over that, they're super delicious.
Yeah, that's right. And I do have to say that a lot of the different khorsh, these stews that we have over rice, they don't photograph very well.
Right.
They don't look like that amazing sometimes, but they are super delicious. So hopefully people can get over that. Let's talk about rice dishes that have herbs in them.
Yeah. So we just celebrated Nowruz, and with that is an iconic traditional rice that's served with fish for the Persian New Year. It's called Sabzi Polo. So sabzi polo is made with dill.
Yeah, so dill, you can also put parsley in there as well. It really is a beautiful dish. It's like has the different greens from the herbs in there with the white rice and some saffron if you want to put on it. Sabzi polo is traditionally served with fish. So sabzi polo mahi is a dish that you have for Persian New Year. And it's light, it's fluffy. I really enjoy it. There's also another version that you can add fava beans to it and make it more of like a baghali polo. And that's really good. I really like that with a braised lamb shank. It's one of my favorite baghali polo bomaiche. They kind of like are paired together. So that's rice dishes that have these herbs in them. I feel though, you need to put a lot of herbs in your sabzi polo for it to really like showcase the herbs, because it just shrinks up a little bit. So you really need to make sure that you're putting like at least a handful of bunches of whatever herbs that you're using in the rice to really like make sure that the rice is like nice and green or has like a lot of green to it versus just like a sporadic in it. Some people actually mix a little bit of dried herbs into their rice as well. And then there's people who feel very strongly against that. So to each their own. You can do a little bit of a mix. That's always nice to kind of incorporate like both types of the herbs to really be able to have a standout dish.
Yeah, play around with it. You can even try frozen. I've tried frozen. It's hard to get it to incorporate and not sort of be chunked together, but...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you do need a lot of it. Good point. It's delicious. I love baghali polo, the fava bean dill rice with a good potato tahdig and some turmeric. It's really delicious.
Yeah, so good. So good. We'll have to have one of our next food adventures together, going and getting some baghali polo together.
Yeah, that sounds good. Up in the city, there's a great place, right?
Yeah, I always enjoy going there.
Well, what's your favorite herb of the bunch? Do you have a favorite?
Gosh, I would say, I really love basil. Like eating it like in the Sabzi Khordan. I guess it kind of depends on what it is. So if I'm having it fresh, I really enjoy fresh basil. If it's going to be kind of in my food, like cooked, I really actually enjoy like parsley, like khorsh karafs. The parsley really kind of shines. And then also mint, because we fried dried mint, that is, and we put that as like a topping on ash rishte or on other foods. So the fried mint really is special and really has that smell that like is pretty intoxicating and it's really lovely. So I would have to say kind of like those three would be kind of like my favorites. And you said cilantro is your favorite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I had to choose, I'd say cilantro number 1, mint number 2, and dill is my number 3.
Yeah, dill is so special too. And you could really use that in a bunch of different ways too.
Yeah. I'm with you on the dried mint. The fresh mint I like in a hot water or, to make a nice tea or as a garnish. I think mint makes a really lovely garnish to just about anything. And fresh cilantro I could eat on anything. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
But we had such a busy March. We really, really did. And I thought it'd be fun to just kind of reflect a little bit on our adventures and thank our listeners for your support. We did participate in the Taste Awards again this year, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that, but it was a glitzy glam event. And although we didn't win an award, we were up on the stage as presenters, and we met so many cool people and left really with a sense of energy and inspiration. And I love being surrounded by creatives. I think in Los Angeles, you really feel like at home being a creator.
Yeah, it was great to be with like-minded folks in kind of like the food content arena. It was a fancy event. We were all glittered up in our fancy dresses, and along with everyone else, I think had the same mental memo of everyone was all dressed up in glitter, and, red and gold were really kind of colors that were shining through that evening. So we had a lot of fun. It was a good excuse to see each other as well and hang out. And we don't always get a chance to do that. We record, online, so we don't always get to be with each other in person. So that was always fun.
Yeah, and we took a little informal survey asking LA food enthusiasts in the Los Angeles community to recommend their favorite Persian restaurant. And so we followed their lead, and we were pleased beyond belief with this lunch, and it fueled us for the Taste Awards. So thank you for that recommendation. And we hope to try more Persian restaurants and share that with you in every city where we meet up.
Yeah, Taranj, it was a great experience. They had really good food and service. So if you're in that area, definitely check them out. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the name of the restaurant is Taranj, and it's in Westwood near UCLA. That whole area was so fun to go through. They call it Tehrangeles because it's like a play on words, Los Angeles and Tehran. And there's just so many Persian restaurants, coffee shops, markets that even the signs and the banners are in Farsi. It's so kind of cool to be there.
Yeah, driving down, it was like shop after shop was just a Persian store, Persian market, Persian bookstore, rug gallery. So it was a lot of fun to kind of really feel that Persian community there.
I also had a lot of fun sprouting sabzi on social media with you all. I grew my chia seeds for the Persian New Year. It was fun to see your progress and to make wishes as we threw them into the flowing water or into our compost bin. So thank you for those of you who participated in that with us.
Yes. Well, the whole Nowruz season, as I like to call it, with starting off with the jumping over the fire for the Charshamba Suri, having actual New Year's, setting out our hafseen and, different celebrations with family and friends, and then rounding it out with Sizde Bedar picnic. It was just a really lovely time for kind of, embracing the new year, and hopefully it'll be a great year for everybody. Thank you all for listening. Bitajun, thank you for your time. Fresh herbs, it really is spring. Everywhere you look is green, thankfully, and hopefully a happy and healthy year to come for everybody. And stay tuned for next month. We're going to be talking about Persian breakfast, getting ready for some entertaining, and also the summer with, some of our fun ideas on how to host or enjoy Persian breakfast.
Thank you, Bitajun, and thank you all. See you next time.
Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Modern Persian Food Podcast with Bita and Bita. Thanks for spending time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling a friend or giving us a good rating. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app, or find us online at modernpersianfood.com or on Instagram for the recipes and information we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and see you next time.